Hello and welcome to our on-demand webinar, Next Generation Customer Communication Archiving and e-Presentment with Alfresco. There are three speakers today: George Parapadakis, Strategist at Alfresco; Tim Nelms, Vice President of the International Division at Crawford Technologies; and Tone Haynes, Chief Technology Officer at Xenit Solutions. George will talk through, first of all, defining customer communications, trends in customer communication archiving, and Alfresco as a platform for customer communication archiving. Then Tim will talk about archiving techniques for high-volume print formats, indexing and metadata management, and storage strategies and records management. And finally, Tone will discuss common challenges with high-volume document flow and Alfred Inflow as a solution to ingest high-volume documents. There will be an opportunity at the end of the presentation to email questions to any of our speakers, but for now, we hope you enjoy this on-demand webinar.
Customer communications are key to all enterprise organizations, but some organizations are particularly involved in sending very large volumes of documents every month, every year, to their customers. So organizations that have direct access to customers and typically organize information such as invoices and statements and customer acknowledgements to go out in print, or typically used to, are mostly coming from financial services or insurance or healthcare. And the problem that they're facing is just the sheer volume of this information that typically used to be produced by legacy systems for printing and for distributing through post. Now, in the way the system works and the way the information flows in these organizations is that typically you'll have legacy mainframe systems creating the output that goes to customers in various different and specific formats, and they are targeted for printing. So when an organization runs these print runs effectively, they produce a stream of very large batches of documents that are targeted to printers and printer type formats, which are very specific and very nuanced to allow effective printing. However, part of that process is actually capturing that information for compliance purposes and for being able to reproduce it when customer requirements are asking for it. So in reality, while most of these systems were designed originally to handle paper and to produce paper, the world is moving to an environment where most customers are expecting to get their information digitally, either to have it emailed to them, either to be sent to them through social media, or to be able to self-service through a portal to go and retrieve the documents as and when they need it, like most of us do with most of our electricity bills or water bills or what have you. Now, these systems were designed and built over 20 years ago. Some of the customers have these systems running. They are typically monolithic organizations that were architected for mainframes. They do their job very well. They've been running for a long time, but the problem is they're isolated, they're expensive to run, and even more expensive to manage because of the age of the software, the design of the software, and the lack of skills available in the market today to be able to support them. So a lot of our customers have been looking for methods to transition from their existing legacy archives, and as part of a data center consolidation and a reduction of cost, because most IT organizations are trying to bring back their costs, they're looking to move from an environment that was designed probably 20, 30 years ago, it was designed for a very different era of technology, and it was designed very specifically to hold a limited type of information for one and one purpose only, which is archiving and producing, to a much more open, much more agile technology that integrates within the operational environment. Now, the reason behind it is both cost and efficiency as well as operational effectiveness. As customers move more and more into self-service systems, they're looking for a single way and a single view of getting all relevant information. What you don't want to be to moving around multiple systems and multiple communication methods to get the same information. So part of the exercise that we're working on with customers to achieve is to bring and consolidated the information architectures behind these into a single unified environment. We use the Alfresco platform to do this, but before I get into why that platform is significant, I want to give you one example, and this case is British Gas. It's an energy organization in the UK. Some of the key problems they've had while they were generating over 70 million documents a year to service over 15 million customers, was the way information was accessed by the customers and the cost that they had around duplicating information and printing and distributing it. By transitioning to a Crawford-based system, they have been able to reduce the both the printing and postage costs significantly, as well as improve the quality of the customer service that they offer. Staff, when they answer customer inquiries, have got direct access to the information. They can see exactly what information the customers have received, either through email or through self-service. Everybody has a single point of reference to be able to service the customer's request. And in the process, by having a index accessible archive for the communications, they can respond to the compliance requirements, and Tim will talk a little bit later about what's involved in that process. Now, I mentioned Alfresco as the core platform behind it. One of the reasons Alfresco is focusing in this area is because customers are moving continuously from a paper-based environment into a digital environment. Since the early 2000s, Alfresco has been focusing in that industry and has been working to accelerate the pace at which paper can be taken out of the organization. I'm not sure we will ever get to a nirvana of 0% paper communications, but reality is that most customers today would prefer to receive their statements and their bills electronically rather than on paper. The reason the platform has been particularly fitting in this for this use case and for this application is that it's been designed from the ground up as an architecture which allows information governance to be expanded across all information within the organization in a single environment. And it allows both archiving and active documents to be co-hosted and indexed and searched in the same environment. So the idea is that you have a unified information platform that integrates directly with your operational business processes. And one of the reasons why customers tend to go for that approach is that it's an open platform, an open architecture that allows them to integrate it directly into their existing infrastructure and integrate with other solutions like the CRM solutions. What it also allows you to do, because it's designed to be hosted in both on premises and cloud environments. It allows customers to design their transition strategy from moving to a data center that they host and manage into a cloud environment hosted to providers like Amazon Web Services. Now, the significance of that is scalability. By employing a scalable platform that allows to manage billions of items of information in an indexed environment and with consolidated different document types, it means that you can take advantage of the very large scalability and the cost savings that cloud providers are bringing directly into the storage savings. So by employing cloud native microservices architecture, it means you have an environment that can grow with the organization without locking down that information on a purely archive monolithic platform. It allows that information to float across the different parts of the business operation that need access to it, and it allows it to scale at a very large volume at a very minimized cost by allowing information strategies to tier where and how that information needs to be stored over time. Now, that's very much on how information is stored and managed within the environment. But in order to be able to do that, you need, first of all, to understand how the type of information that is used for communications and how that is being processed in order to be stored in the environment. And for that, I will ask Tim to take over and explain how the Crawford technology allows that transition to happen.
Thank you there, George. And that's a great introduction for the Alfresco platform. And I'm going to be talking specifically about this problem, which is how do you take the amount of information, these millions of documents that are generated by large organizations each day, and how do you create a really efficient pipeline to make sure that those are ingested into the Alfresco platform. So a specific solution that Crawford Technologies have created for this problem is called CCM Gateway for Alfresco. And it's designed to deal with this key workflow. And one of the advantages of Crawford Technologies' CCM Gateway is that it is already widely deployed with legacy customer communication archives. And that gives the added reassurance that Alfresco can directly support the same feature set as you find in legacy systems. So the atypical workflow for these systems is that we're taking information captured from perhaps mainframe, from perhaps JES spools as the output of mainframe systems, possibly enterprise applications like Oracle or JD Edwards, often these days document composition tools. And we're capturing that information and then transforming, indexing it, and storing it into Alfresco, and effectively leveraging Alfresco as a high volume archive for that information. So what I'm going to do is just touch on a few of those stages to talk about them in a little bit more detail. So legacy customer communication archives are rarely designed with their eventual replacement in mind. In fact, legacy archives tend to suffer from a somewhat closed approach to archiving content. And one of those closed approaches is the use of relatively proprietary file formats, combined with the lack of APIs and actually a paucity of tooling to unload content, which is all reflecting the age of these products. They were designed at a time when people probably thought you wouldn't have to migrate from those tools. So the net result is that capturing data from these legacy archives ready for migration into Alfresco isn't always easy. Now, where possible, we try to use the documented techniques for unloading contents from these source systems. And where those techniques are not available, we use specialist tooling to reach into those systems and extract not just content, but the indices as well that tell us where documents occur within these large batches. We work with many of the popular legacy archives out there in preparing their content for migration to Alfresco. So let's talk about transform and indexing. Crawford's core transform modules handle print formats like AFP, Xerox Metacode, PostScript, PCL, various flavors of PDF and line data. And what those solutions do is they guarantee high fidelity conversion between formats. And we mean things like mapping object to object, so mapping line data, mapping graphics, mapping vector graphics, mapping fonts, all of those kind of things to create a really high quality output. In fact, seeing no difference between the input and the output when you view it. Now, many Alfresco customers we notice are choosing variants of PDF, particularly ISO standard PDF-A for long-term archiving. And I guess the attraction being that it's an internationally recognized standard with significant long-term benefits over maybe storing a traditional print format. For those companies, however, who need to store legacy print formats, maybe as they've done in their legacy archives or for compliance reasons, we also provide the ability to store these in Alfresco as well. So that is right. You can continue to store an archive AFP and Xerox Metacode with Alfresco. So Alfresco's open source foundation means that it's actually highly adaptable to a wide range of content management use cases. And a very common model for storing content in Alfresco is to use a one-to-one correspondence between content objects and documents, the files. And that suits a wide range of use cases and provides for extremely fine-grained records management. Now, with Crawford Technologies, Alfresco has also developed a storage model with a one-to-many correspondence between content objects and documents. And that supports the high volume archiving of document batches, a technique that is used by many legacy customer communication archives. Now, we call those approaches respectively no burst and full burst archiving. And it means that our customers can trade storage efficiency with the granularity of records management. So the Crawford Technologies interface to Alfresco takes full advantage of this approach, which means that migrated content actually bears the closest possible resemblance to its counterpart in the source system, which is important when you're trying to audit and track information from one system to another. And this slide just shows some of the different techniques that are available, with everything from what we term full burst archiving at the top, storing individual documents with all of the fine-grained records management, to no burst archiving of native print files. So the final piece of the puzzle for us is e-Presentment services. Now that's an essential component of the process that allows consumers to access documents via web portals and via mobile devices. So e-Presentment can include document transformation, because if you stored AFP, you might want to transform to PDF or to HTML5 for display on mobile devices and web browsers. Another feature of e-Presentment, though, can be things like accessible tagging, and that's the process of formatting documents for screen readers that support the blind and the partially sighted. And that can be done real time during e-Presentment. So critically here, Alfresco can be used as the basis for accessible document support in compliance with regulations like ADA. Finally, there are options that you often need in real scenarios for call centers, things like redaction that help you comply with PCI DSS standards. And finally, digital signatures. Digital signatures help you guarantee authenticity of documents that are stored in the archive. So behind the scenes, Alfresco is relying on Crawford Technologies e-Presentment services to deliver those capabilities, including bursting, including accessible PDF, and including digital signatures. So let me give you an example of a customer who's been through this process. This is If Insurance in Finland. They're a property and casualty insurance company with about 4 million customers operating over the whole of the region, generating 20 million documents and reports each year with an 11-year retention period. So their problem was that they were storing these documents in 3 different systems with 4 different external customer-facing portals for online e-Presentment. So they adopted a solution from Crawford Technologies, and we helped them migrate from those legacy systems and convert all of that content into their strategic choice, and that is to choose PDF-A, the ISO standard archive format. And they were able to decommission their legacy systems, simplify their infrastructure and their maintenance costs to end up with a single consolidated archive with a 360-degree view of customer information. So that journey that IF went on is a journey that we see in many of our customers, and is typically a three-step process at the moment. It's the need to, first of all, digitize end-to-end customer communications, often involving PDF-A. Secondly, to deliver a compelling online experience through portals and mobile devices, often with HTML. And then finally, to provide for that compliance with governance and regulation, particularly GDPR in Europe. So with that said, we're going to hand over to Xenit at this point in time, who are going to talk about the thorny subject of how you load into Alfresco whilst maintaining a level of service in the Alfresco system that guarantees a responsive system for end users. And I think as part of this, Tones, you're going to be talking about kitchen sinks, but I'll leave that to you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Toon Geens. I'm CTO at Xenit Solutions. And we're going to talk about the common challenges with high volume, high speed document ingestions and how our approach, our solution called Alfred Inflow, addresses those challenges. So you have to upload and process a considerable volume of documents into Alfresco, let's say a few million documents. You go to your team and they tell you, well, there is an open industry standard API, it's called CMIS, and it's supported by multiple CMIS vendors. So it's going to be easy, but before long, problems start to creep up. You encounter slow performance because CMIS is a synchronous API, which means you send documents with metadata to Alfresco and have to wait for Alfresco to respond. And only then you can send the next document, which means you sit idle and waste time and performance waiting for an OK from the repository. Additionally, CMIS is a rather verbose protocol, which means there is a lot of chatter going back and forth between your application and Alfresco. Don't worry, tells your team tells you, we'll parallelize this. But it turns out the performance gain is rather limited. There is contention on resources. Parallel workers are waiting on each other. To make the analogy, we're washing the dishes and everyone is supposed to clean their own plate, but there is only one kitchen sink. Well, while that approach works, we're going to have to take turns to use the sink. And there are diminishing returns on when you add more parallelization. Like you can see with the sink analogy, adding more people all washing their own plates won't really improve the performance. Additionally, you just created a new problem. Alfresco gets overloaded, which impacts the performance and can stall your system, making it practically unusable for your end users. And no matter which system, visibility into the ingestion process performance is a major concern. When there is an error, it's relatively easy to fix. You can follow along the path and see where the error happened. But the hardest issues to solve, the most expensive issues, are the issues where it all works, but it's unusually slow. Those are hard problems, and you need visibility into all the components. We call this observability. And you need this to be able to diagnose those kind of performance issues. So how does Alfred Inflow addresses those issues? For starters, Alfred Inflow is not using the CMS protocol, but is instead using an asynchronous bulk API, which means Inflow sends documents to Alfresco in bulk, where they are queued in a buffer waiting to be processed. That means that Inflow is not waiting for Alfresco to have fully processed the first document before sending the next, and vice versa. Alfresco is not waiting to receive the next document from Inflow. It's already there in the queue, waiting to be processed. Alfred Inflow uses an optimized pipeline instead of parallel workers. Comparing this with the CMS approach, we're not creating more workers through more work in parallel. Instead, we build a pipeline and we try to streamline the process so the resource contention, the bottlenecks, can be as efficient as possible. Let's recall the analogy. With CMS, we had multiple parallel workers, all cleaning their own plates. But now with Alfred Inflow, we have one or more cleaning the table, sorting out and stacking the dirty plates. So the bottleneck, the one doing the dishes, can be as efficient as possible. Alfred Inflow is using a load-sensitive protocol based on reactive streams with back pressure. All those workers in the pipeline only start their work when they know they can hand it over to the next worker in the pipeline. And this avoids Alfresco getting overloaded. Finally, it's really important to have visibility into the ingestion process performance. And therefore, Inflow provides a dashboard with detailed reporting. And additionally, telemetry and metrics which can be graphed and analyzed with tools like, for example, Grafana for diagnostic purposes. So to recap, we've developed and used Alfresco for more than 10 years and used it in multiple high-volume projects, both migration and continuous flows. A typical customer ingests between 100,000 and 1 million documents per day, and we've had migration projects which have burst up to 200 documents per second. Alfred Inflow's main features. We can connect to multiple sources like a network drive, different Alfresco system. We provide a mapping between the metadata from the source system to the metadata model in Alfresco. We have scheduling and automation of those jobs and a dashboard with reporting of the ingestion. So showing a high-level overview of the system architecture here, Alfred Inflow is picking up documents from Crawford and sending them to Alfresco. It's practically sitting in between. Let's talk about the real customer case. PNV Group, which is one of the leading insurance companies in Belgium. And Alfred Inflow played an important role in their digital transformation. Before this transformation, they handled traditional incoming communication in their mail rooms and physical archives. Email was, for example, printed out and archived. Handling cases was slow because information was not easily retrieved. To overcome those challenges, now the additional mail gets scanned and loaded into Alfresco using Inflow, together with the digital communication like claims and emails. We're talking about 50 to 100 documents incoming per minute during business hours. The use cases of Inflow have expanded over time, and by now they have around 100 individual document flows, not only from their incoming communication, also storing outgoing communication, output from their mainframes, contracts, invoices, etc. So this is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much. I'm going to pass it back to Crawford.
Thank you, Toon. I hope we've given you a good overview of the process and the benefits of transitioning from legacy archives for customer communications to modern and highly scalable platforms based on Alfresco, and actually bringing the scalability of the Alfresco platform together with the sort of specialist technology provided by Crawford Technologies and Xenit Solutions means that you actually have an opportunity to significantly reduce the costs of archiving, and also significantly to improve customer experience and improve and increase your employee efficiency in the way that they're servicing your customers. So if you want to find additional information regarding what we've talked about today, you can go to the Alfresco website at www.alfresco.com and look under the Partner Solutions catalog, where you're going to find the e-Presentment solution from Crawford Technologies, and there's further information there about Xenit Inflow as well. From there, you can download several white papers. It'll give you far more information and detail around what we've been talking about today.
And that concludes our on-demand presentation on next generation customer communication archiving and e-presentment with Alfresco. As promised, here are the email addresses for our 3 speakers, and please feel free to contact them or Alfresco, Crawford Technologies, and Xenit generally regarding any questions you might have. We hope you enjoyed our presentation, and thank you.